L'incenso, un olio importante, un olio venerato in tutto il mondo, un olio dai 1000 benefici e soprattutto un olio da usare ogni giorno. Ma perché è così importante? Perché ha queste straordinarie proprietà? E perché soprattutto si consiglia di utilizzarlo ogni giorno? Lo scopriamo proprio in questo video con due personaggi d'eccezione, il dottor Hill, ossia uno dei maggiori esperti di oli essenziali e medicina integrata a livello mondiale, e Emily Wright, attuale presidente di doTERRA, nonché uno dei fondatori dell'azienda insieme al dottor Hill e ad altre 5 persone. Ciao ragazzi, qui Marco Pesenti, diamante e fondatore doTERRA Italia. Come dicevo poco fa in apertura, oggi parliamo dell'incenso, parliamo del Frankincense, il re degli oli, il grande protagonista di dicembre. E per farlo ho deciso di fare un grande regalo a tutto il mercato doTERRA italiano. Qualche giorno fa, infatti, ho visto sui social di Emily Wright che avrebbe fatto una diretta con il dottor Hill per parlare proprio dell'incenso. Dovete sapere che purtroppo questi contenuti sono preclusi alla maggior parte delle persone in Italia perché sono contenuti esclusivamente in inglese senza sottotitoli. Quindi chi sa l'inglese può trovare il link alla diretta originale qui sotto e consiglio appunto di guardare quella. Chi invece non sa l'inglese non si preoccupi perché può continuare a guardare questo video. Ho infatti deciso di tradurre tutta la diretta fatta da Emily e dal dottor Hill e di renderla disponibile a tutte le persone in Italia per due ragioni principali. La prima perché contiene informazioni veramente di valore molto importanti, quindi non lasciatevi ingannare dai primi minuti in cui magari si parla dell'incenso legato alla religione, perché più passa il tempo, più passano i minuti e più arrivano concetti, informazioni veramente molto importanti. Per esempio, viene detto cosa succede al nostro corpo quando usiamo oli essenziali non di qualità. Viene spiegata anche la chimica dell'incenso, vengono spiegati quali sono i suoi costituenti principali e che benefici danno al nostro corpo e soprattutto viene spiegato perché l'incenso è un olio da usare ogni giorno. In secondo luogo ho deciso di tradurre questa diretta perché molte persone purtroppo non conoscono né il dottor Hill né Emily Wright e questo è un vero peccato perché queste due persone incarnano veramente quella che è l'anima, lo spirito di doTERRA e di conseguenza sentirle parlare, sentire le loro storie fa veramente capire chi è doTERRA, il fatto che non è solamente un'azienda di oli essenziali ma è molto di più. Tra l'altro a maggio 2024 avremo Emily qua in Italia perché avremo la convention europea a Torino, un appuntamento imperdibile e quindi è bene iniziare a conoscerla e a capire chi è. Quindi bando alle ciance, prima di lasciare la parola a loro un paio di consigli. Qualora infatti non ne riuscissi a stare dietro, stare al passo con i sottotitoli e con la traduzione, puoi rallentare il video. Farlo è semplicissimo, basta che clicchi in basso a destra sulla rotellina, clicchi poi su velocità di riproduzione e infine selezioni appunto la velocità che desideri, 0,5 o 0,75. Ricordati poi di iscriverti al canale per non perdere i prossimi video. Ora lascio la parola a loro e noi ci vediamo alla fine del video.
Let's talk about frankincense.
Let's do it.
This has been a little bit of a tradition in doTERRA right from the very beginning. At Christmas time, we started highlighting frankincense.
It's our way of showing gratitude also, right? As we highlight frankincense and the significance of it this time of year.
Well, it has a lot of significance.
Yes.
Both historically and in the world. Mm-hmm. Spiritually, I think a lot of people have recognition of frankincense and its value historically that way.
So let's walk back in history, shall we?
Sure.
Should we go back about 2,000 years or so?
Emily, we said we weren't going to talk about how old I was, but sure, let's go there.
So when you think about the three wise men who carried frankincense, myrrh, and gold, and you know that these gifts were very intentionally selected for the King of Kings.
Correct.
And we know they traveled far distances, and maybe up to 2 years that they traveled following this new star in the sky. And why do you think they chose frankincense and myrrh?
You know, I've actually thought about that
Yeah.
in a lot of different ways. I think that there was, you know, we can't really probably speak to everything and all of the reasons why, but it had this rich historical value for wellness, for healing, and it was used in a variety of different ways. It was also perceived as something that was very special and very unique. I mean, it's been referred to often as the king of essential oils.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of reasons why that is, but it had this rich value that was rooted into the social economic circumstance, but also had some real religious and spiritual connotations too. And so I think it was a combination of all of those things together. What I love about that is that there's not only that recognition, and sometimes it's hard to relate to something that was so many thousands of years ago.
Yes.
But that it hasn't really died off during that time. We still see that same value, that same recognition. It's still revered in largely the same way, and there's got to be some really good reasons for that, which is what frankly has made frankincense, no pun intended, one of my favorite essential oils for a long period of time now. I know that you love frankincense too. So tell me why you love frankincense.
It's a daily at our house. Well, for me, it connects me back, thinking about that original gift, and think about maybe some of the reasons that the Magi gave this to the babe Jesus. It was they would use it as an anointing for those of royal birth.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that was very significant, right, to show that they saw him as a king, that he was definitely of royal birth. And so as I use it in my daily life, that definitely connects me back to that time. But I love it for what it does for my skin. I love to put it in with a serum or with lotion, and I use it on my face. We know that it's very cell-renewing, very self-protecting, and I love what it does for me that way. I love that it's something that, when my son was young, Keaton was very sensitive to many of the oils, and so frankincense, being very mild, was the one that we turned to. So frankincense was his go-to for everything and anything, and it never let us down. It was so versatile in its use and its benefits.
There's a lot of reason for that versatility, and I know how much you love talking about chemistry. But before we do, I'm thinking about my own personal use, about why I use frankincense. I use it for very different reasons.
Okay.
I know you look at me and you say, "Wow, really?" Because you're beautiful.
They're saying he looks 29. Give him some compliments here. He looks amazing.
I use it for very different reasons, and you touched on it just a little bit, and that is there's a lot of versatility associated with frankincense.
Yes.
And we know a lot about the chemistry of essential oils. We know a lot about how essential oils now work. As we were beginning in essential oils, I think back in my own journey, and I think you would relate to this too, there wasn't a tremendous amount of science that we could turn to, and that's all different now. And it's nice for two reasons. One is that we not only get this information that we fall back on all the time, but it turns out we were right. In our own experiences with frankincense and with essential oils in general.
Science is now backing up what we knew many, many years ago. And isn't it awesome? It's like, we knew that.
It's nice to have that validation, but I think this brings up an interesting point that we really should ask everyone to remember. And that is one of the things that we've done consistently with essential oils. I use my wife as this example. I ask her why she uses frankincense, and I'm always wanting her to say, well, there's this really smart guy, and, he talks about it all the time. That has never fallen from her lips. She just looks at me in all earnestness and says, I don't know, I just feel better when I do.
Yes.
And so I think we need to ask everybody to really trust your experience with the essential oils. Don't always feel like everything has to come into, here's all the chemistry, here's all the science, here's all the pathways, here's all the cellular interactions, here's all the enzymes that are involved. We know all of those things now, and we didn't know them before.
We know some of those things, and I think that's what I love so much about essential oils. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're at the forefront of essential oil research. No company in the world knows more than we know because they're not able to do the science that we're doing. They don't have the purity that we have. I mean, we're doing pharmacokinetics. We're doing epigenetics. I mean, we're going into amazing places that have never been gone into before with essential oils.
Here's what I like about all
and
of
yet
that.
we still only know this much.
Yeah, there's two
Isn't
things
that exciting?
here. It very much so. I think it was Dr. Stevens who I was talking to not too long ago, and she kind of let out this big sigh and said, I don't think we're ever going to understand everything. There's truth in that statement. They're very complex. We know that.
Yes.
But what I love about it is, in spite of that complexity, in spite of everything that we know, and as Emily says, everything that we still don't know at this point, what we do know, and we know with great clarity, is the value and the benefit that they are bringing to people.
Yes, we hear the stories from all over the world.
Yeah, and that you and I are not alone in our experience, and neither are you alone in your experience. And for me, that is a little bit energizing because it allows me this opportunity to say, okay, well, maybe I do know all of this chemistry and all of these other things.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, that's not why I use it. It's nice to feel validated in what my experience has been, but I'm undeviating in my willingness to use the essential oils because of my experience and the outcomes that they create for me. Look, we could spend the next hour or two talking about quality and why that matters, and even just small variations create large downstream effects that cannot always be favorable. I want to talk about the chemistry of frankincense.
Let's talk about it.
Because we're making this assumption that all of you know about our quality and all these other things.
What makes our frankincense unique? Because, I mean, I was in the hardware store a couple of months ago, and they were selling pure frankincense, hardware store. So I pulled off the cap and I had my husband and my kids smell it, and I loved their reaction. They turned up their nose. They're like, what is that?
Was this
well, they claim it's frankincense, but clearly it's not.
Was this a hardware / bank / fast food store?
It was
all
Cal
wrapped
Ranch.
up into one?
It was Cal Ranch, only hardware.
Okay, well, I'll give you that.
But essential oils have even made their way there. They've become very popularized. Or when doTERRA began in 2008, you didn't see many essential oils. We were kind of the front runner there. And there were other companies that existed, but they didn't have the purity, they didn't have the potency, and so we needed to create that. And because doTERRA has grown so large, people say, well, clearly, in order to have success, we need to offer essential oils. But they don't have what we have, and so let's talk about that.
Okay, I was going to talk about the chemistry, and that is a chemistry discussion.
It is a chemistry discussion.
It is, but can I add something else first?
Please.
I think the challenge that all of us face is pretty clear. It's this popularity that you were just speaking about, Emily. With what we've accomplished in doTERRA, knowing what we know, which is unique to doTERRA.
Yes.
It's really easy to say that you do something. It's really easy to say that, well, we have that too.
The last slogan I saw, which is just this weekend, was, our oils are the same quality of doTERRA's. We just provide them cheaper because we don't have any middlemen. So let's talk about that.
Okay, let's talk about it. I didn't want to, but let's talk about it. Yeah, here we go.
It fired me up a bit.
So I think you would be wrong to think we don't know anybody who says that they're an essential oil supplier. We know everything about this market as a whole.
We go direct.
And
in fact, 99% of our oils are exclusive only to us. No one else can even have access to them.
Well, this goes back to what I said a few minutes ago, that even small variations create huge differences in terms of outcomes. So let's say even if it was a good quality essential oil, it may not have the same outcomes. But we know from being in the marketplace, and I know who you're talking about, and I'm just going to say it real directly. We've tested those oils, and we know what the quality of those oils are. You do get what you pay for, and it's easy to say just like doTERRA, or our oils are as good or better than doTERRA. Yes. Those are easy statements to say, but I want you to think about what you know about doTERRA. And for maybe those of you who don't belong to doTERRA, I want you to understand who we believe ourselves to be and how we conduct ourselves. There is nobody who goes to the extensive work that we do to ensure quality, yes, and efficacy, and I'll add a third one, safety with the essential oils. It's
with
not
purity
something
being the foremost, right? That comes first before everything else.
Emily, how long has our company existed?
15 years.
15 years,
Yep.
soon to be in our 16th year, not
Yes.
too much further into the future.
Yes.
That's an exciting point to be at in doTERRA. When we started doTERRA, we had this extreme desire to produce essential oils differently than how they existed in the marketplace.
Yes.
Nobody can refute that. The oils were not what they were supposed to be.
No, we were frustrated. You and I had worked in the essential oil world for many years before doTERRA. We became frustrated, and that they were not what they claimed
Correct.
to be.
We also
we could
have
not
spent
find purity in the marketplace anywhere.
We also now have spent all of these years, 15 years, you've said it well, I wish we knew everything.
Yes.
But I look at what we do now versus what we did then, and you have to think of this as a linear progression. You can't compare the two moments in time.
Right.
It was our pursuit of what's pure, and has been this entire time, and still remains that way today. It is erroneous to think that any company could begin where we are right now.
No.
It's impossible. And I've grown tired of people saying, just like doTERRA. It's flattering. Thank you for the compliment. You and I, and this is where I was going, you and I have to be more discerning than that.
So what happens? Let's say someone picks up a frankincense from, the mall or from a hardware store, online, and they're saying, they say 100% pure. They never say, be careful, I'm adulterated, or I'm actually Boswellia serrata, which is a very, very low quality frankincense. We only use the best frankincense species and quality. What is the dangers? Let's say you're just inhaling that, Dr. Hill. What are the dangers of using something that has been adulterated or is low quality?
I think there's I'm just going to take some of this. Thank you. Any chance I have to steal Emily's oils, I'm doing it.
Absolutely.
For me, Emily, this kind of comes down to a practical and really basic understanding of health and sciences and how those interact and
Yes.
mingle with one another. We know a lot now, as you talked about, pharmacokinetics and epigenetics and some of the things that we're involved in. So we do know pathway.
Yes.
And we do know what happens. I'm going to use Copaiba actually as a good example of this. And I won't call out the company because I don't think we need to, but they claim to be a strong competitor.
Yes.
When we were looking at Copaiba, and we do this all the time, we're not just interested in quality, we're interested in what's the outcomes that it's going to produce.
Absolutely.
But here's a good example of where just a small variation.
Okay.
Our oil is 100% pure, and so we did some of you might remember
it. It comes from an oleo resin from the trees in the Amazon.
That's right.
You and I have been there together.
One of the favorite things I've ever done is go to the Amazon and see all of that firsthand. And
it's his favorite thing because he went on the trip with me.
I did want to push her out of the boat one time and just watch the piranhas have a heyday, but it was okay. It was really a special trip.
It really was.
I mean, we got to really get deep into the jungle and in its most raw form of where these resins are coming from. We know the quality that we have and that we demand, and we're incessant about testing and retesting and going through that process.
Absolutely.
So we did all of the pharmacokinetics, and we know the pathway associated with our Copaiba.
Right.
We took one of our competitors' oils who make the exact same claim, the most pure, the most powerful in the world, and it actually was pro-inflammatory in the body because of some of the adulteration. And this is the problem. Right. This is the
pro-inflammatory. Did you catch that? Because this is Right? When you're
while
talking,
at the same time making claims that it isn't. Now, I'm not trying to berate other companies, but this is why I'm saying you have to put your trust somewhere. Trust your own experience. And if you don't believe what we're telling you is true, come see us. We'll show you.
yes.
But then maybe you don't care. And that's a hard thing to say, and I'm not being unkind. But you've got to become discerning in what we're doing, because an oil that's adulterated, best case scenario is it's just not going to have the effect that you're looking for.
Yep.
Worst case scenario, like in the example I shared, it's going to be pro-inflammatory, and the very thing you're using it for and believing that it's going to help you with actually becomes the thing that you're stimulating in the body, and it now is just doing harm and damage.
Right.
And so it's not just about quality, it's not just about the efficacy, it's also about the safety. And
Absolutely.
you have to be willing to do the work to do all three of those things. And I'm proud, Emily. I had this conversation with somebody earlier. I was talking with them about leadership, and that there's a principle in leadership that you have to become immovable. Now, sometimes when people hear that, they think it means, oh, you can't change, you just got to be the same. It's not what I'm referring to. Immovable in your beliefs,
Yes.
in your core concepts, your integrity, and what you believe,
Those
and
values.
how you're going to conduct yourself through your values.
And we defined that when we first had that conversation at that Italian restaurant 16 years ago.
We spent,
What were our values?
it was
going
several
to be?
hours we spent talking about this is what has
What
to
did
be
we want to
different.
stand for?
What did we want to stand for?
Yes.
So I take issue, and I hope that you do too, when other companies enter into the marketplace, because oils is the fun thing to do now, and they enter into the marketplace and say that, and we're just as good as doTERRA without having done any of the work, any of the
don't
expertise
know what's
or
in
knowledge.
their bottle. So if you take an adulterated or low quality frankincense, so we know through emerging research, we know that our frankincense is neuroprotective. We know that it's protecting multiple different types of cells. And so what happens, right, with our cells, and correct me if I say this wrong.
I will.
Right?
Believe me, I will.
Right? Is our cells are making copies of themselves constantly. So you think about a copy machine, right? You take a document and you make copy after copy after copy, and eventually, right, that copy is going to fade. Maybe you won't be able to see it as clearly. Maybe you're copying down something that you've said, and eventually, right, your handwriting gets a little sloppy, or you might miss words or misspell something, and it's not exactly as the original. That can become a problem because it can have a very different meaning. So our cells are the same, right? We make copies after copies of ourselves, but if the message isn't clear, if it gets distorted in some way, and now we make copies of that, we have some problems.
Well, the body has some built-in protection to prevent that from happening. And that happens not every cell will replicate in the body is another important thing.
Sure.
But you're not wrong in what you're saying.
Yep.
And there's a lot that goes into it in terms of telomeres and genetic expression and other things that are involved in that process that you're describing. But there's truth in that we have faulty reproduction of our cells, or we have genetic miscoding within our cells, any number of different things. And
So if you've got an adulterated frankincense that you're using, what's that doing? What's that?
Well, we already know
what
that
signals are being
we
sent?
we already know cell signaling becomes disrupted,
Yes.
or we send the wrong cell signal.
Right. You're disrupting endocrine systems. I mean, all sorts of things that can happen, causing mayhem in the body.
Well, think back to your early days in high school and science, and maybe even junior high.
I don't know if I want to think back to those days.
Cells make up systems, and systems, or
Yes.
tissues, and tissues make up organs, and organs make up systems. So we are having this broad spectrum effect within the body. But
Right.
this is one of the things I love about frankincense is we know that there's a tremendous amount of research that's been done. And one of the things that we've learned is that frankincense is supporting of the cells within the body. So
Right.
how is it doing that? Well,
Yes.
here's the other thing that we now know about frankincense and other oils is that they have specific cell targets.
Yes.
So we
Based
know
on their
that
chemistry, because the chemistry is unique to every essential oil.
you've got to start thinking of essential oils as cell messengers, right? They're communicating cell response in one way or another. So we're upregulating or we're downregulating.
Yes.
And this is why we look at things like epigenetics, and we do some of the other testing that we do and the research that we've done, so that we know where those influences come from. Some of the
So you look at the copaiba research, right? If you just looked at a GCMS, our copaiba and their copaiba may look very similar. However, upon further study and research, you find, because theirs is not pure, theirs is adulterated, they used a partial oleoresin, and then they brought in synthetic beta-caryophyllene. So now, with those changes, our body knows the difference. Right? When you keep it as nature creates it, our body knows what to do with it. It's like, I know what to do with you. Now you bring in a synthetic beta-caryophyllene.
Another way to say that is that the cell signaling is disrupted. I'm sending the wrong message because I either have an incomplete or a partial
it's like, I don't recognize you. I don't know. I don't know what this message is.
Or I have an interaction at the wrong place with the wrong thing. Synthetics, you know, we get into a lot of different things with synthetics. But chirality, their position in space, how they interact, all of that matters, and all of those variances is really what stimulates and delineates what type of cell signaling are we going to receive. Of course, it's much more complicated, but that's a really short version. And I love that purity and potency, all those things that we've talked about, means that we get these appropriate responses. And I love that frankincense, I've said it dozens and countless times, when in doubt, get your frankincense out. Because it has this broad spectrum of activity, and that's because of the chemistry that we see in frankincense.
So let's break down that chemistry a little
let's look at them.
All right, so alpha-pinene is the main constituent in frankincense, in our frankincense. So why do we love alpha-pinene? It's been broadly studied, a lot of research that exists out there.
Anti-inflammatory.
Right.
It helps your body to control and manage inflammation. And let's talk about why we really care about that. Sometimes when we hear that, we think about the long-term broad effects. So maybe somebody has an arthritic condition or something like that, per se. I'm talking about cell protection at the cellular level. And our cell, through its normal metabolic functioning, will produce unwanted metabolites that can be pro-inflammatory to the cell. And your body has a way to counteract that. So when we say that frankincense is working within that, it's working within your body's own ability to be able to control and manage that so that it's not overwhelming to the body and to your cells. And then we get proper cell function and better outcomes as a whole. So
it's going to support healthy inflammatory response in the body, right?
Correct. And here's the other thing that's interesting about that is that we know that we not only have this broader spectrum of activity, but we have this actual cell interaction with what we're seeing with some of these compounds in frankincense.
Which is amazing.
Then we have...
Let's go to limonene.
Okay, limonene.
I know you love limonene.
Well, I do love limonene because I think everybody should just use citrus oils all the time.
That's the main constituent in citrus, right?
In the citrus.
Most citrus.
One or two exceptions, but that's correct. But here we have limonene in frankincense as well, which just furthers the story of how it's protecting of the cells. And so if you don't know what limonene does in the body, first off, limonene works with your body's own ability to create something called glutathione. Which is a protector of cells through antioxidant. Not only that, it's think of it as a regenerative or the master antioxidant in that it can sustain that antioxidant activity by regenerating other antioxidants in the body or helping them to sustain for longer periods of time.
People will ask, well, don't you have a glutathione product? Actually, we do. It's called lemon.
It's called lemon,
or it in your water.
Wild orange, or grapefruit.
It'll stimulate your body's own production of glutathione.
Those are you can't take a glutathione supplement. So, and there's a lot of research talking about limonene, where it shows of its protective qualities, and it's the same limonene that we see in frankincense.
Well, it's cleansing. I love that you're talking about cell messaging, right? Because it really helps cleanse those receptors too, so your cells can communicate better together.
I love how frankincense has, it's not the most complex essential oil there is.
Yeah.
But its chemistry is very detailed and profound in the body.
Yes.
And so then we also have beta pinene.
Yes.
And
alpha and beta.
Alpha and beta pinene. And they're kind of cut from the same thing. I mean, they're both pinenes. They have a little bit different functions within the body. And the beta pinenes themselves are also very protective of cells.
Yes.
Meaning just helping the cells to have normal, good function and not suffer the effects of just normal metabolic events in the cell.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a power. And then there's alpha thujone. And I said thujone, I'm sorry, thujone. I know you love alpha thujone.
I do. Yes.
And why is that, Emily?
For cognitive function. I need all the help I can get. That's why I love to rub frankincense on my brainstem, on my temples, across my forehead. For me, it's preventative. I definitely want to have better memory recall, better cognitive function, but I'm also doing it for preventative purposes because I want to make sure I keep my memory, many, many years down the way.
I want to keep mine too. So this is one of the reasons why frankincense every day is a good approach.
Yes, under my tongue. Do you like to put it under your tongue?
I put it under my tongue. Yes. I also like to put it on the back of my neck. Mm-hmm. I sometimes will just breathe it in and even diffuse it sometimes with a citrus oil, which I love those two mixed together.
Right.
So
Great
the beta
for skin anywhere on the skin.
Beta pinene, that's another benefit that we see from beta pinenes. It's really good for skin. So this is a great topical application.
Right. Put it in a soft gel. You use it as a dietary supplement, and a lot of the new emerging research is showing the benefit of that cell power by using it internally, right?
It's about metabolism and how quickly it metabolizes and what pathways it goes through, but there's some advantages to using it in all three of those ways.
Absolutely.
I love diffusing it. One of the things about diffusion, as you know, is we just get this constant exposure.
And it's so grounding and relaxing. I love the way, it's very relaxing to the tissues as well, right? So if you've gone for a good hard run or a hike, I love to put it in with a lotion or with it, I can add it to my deep blue, and it's amazing for the tissue that way.
I think you've got to think of frankincense as a good addition to anything else that you're doing.
Yes.
Right? This is an everyday, all-purpose, and I know we've been very specific about cell interaction and some of these other things, but you really should just think of frankincense as this everyday essential oil.
It's your go-to.
And it's your go-to.
Again, preventative.
Yeah, every day for me, I think we develop routines sometimes based out of the problems that maybe we're having.
Yes.
But we are always somewhat neglectful of the things we do to prevent things from happening.
That's true.
Frankincense is going to be one of those essential oils.
So I wanted to show, I brought this little burner back with me from Oman. And they'll take a charcoal and they put it underneath. But you can see we've got the frankincense resin here. So this is the Boswellia sacra from Oman. And we're talking to Saeed, one of our frankincense partners there, and I'm like, all right, how do you use frankincense on a daily basis? And they'll burn this in their home. One, they burn it for protection. They believe that it keeps their home safe from any type of negativity, right? But they also will, and they make sure that they scent their hair, their clothing with it every day. But they will also take a frankincense resin and they'll put it in their water and they drink it, because it supports digestive, right? Mm-hmm. And they said they use it for everything.
Well, and that's what we're really,
that for thousands of years that that they continue to use it in their homes in the same way.
So I want to say two things.
Yes.
You said they use it to keep negativity and things away.
Correct.
Sometimes when we hear that, we think, okay, that's pretty weird.
Sure.
What are you thinking?
Sure.
But it really isn't, because what they're getting is the aromatic
Yes.
response from that.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, anytime we elevate and uplift our mood, we're not thinking negatively. So they're not
Exactly.
far off, even though
No.
they maybe categorize it some ways, or you hear other people categorize it that way. Don't think that's as strange as what you think. There's a scientific reason why
Yes.
that happens. But here's the other thing. So you talked about digestive use, but think about what we've been talking about. We've been talking about this broad spectrum of activity because of its support to cell interaction within the body and cell function. So that has, as in and of itself, this broad activity then that we can receive. It's not unique to a specific type of cell or a specific area in the body. This is why I say frankincense is an everyday use essential oil.
Yes, it is. It is in our home. We could not live without frankincense.
I hope my wife watches this, because maybe she'll say, there is this really smart guy who talks about frankincense, but not going to happen. She just uses it because it makes her feel better. See, that's why.
So I have one last question I want to ask you. When I think about that first conversation we had when we decided to start doTERRA. Of course, doTERRA wasn't named yet. It was just the idea that became doTERRA. And we left that meeting with assignments. And, Dave, you go figure out what this business model is going to look like. You put together the business plan. Emily, go find the oils. And Dr. Hill, you go out and educate the world. And you teach them what these essential oils can do. And you validate them by working with hospitals and universities. And you think about 15 years later, how do you feel? Have you done what you said you would do?
Wow, that's not a very fair question. Earlier I mentioned leadership, and it is founded in being immovable, in discovering those principles. I'm getting old. I will tell you, and I don't think I'm unique, I think you would feel the same way. I know that Dave would, and any of our partners will. What a pleasure it is to look back and know that I and we have done everything we said we would do.
Yeah.
I think that's a rare privilege in life. I don't think it comes without lots of sacrifice.
It's true.
But I also don't think it's unique to us. And so when I think about my doTERRA journey in a more personal sense, I think about where the obstacles were. There were no hospitals to work with. There was no science. These are all things that, just like you were out making your discoveries, I was out making mine, and Dave making his, and then later Greg and everyone else who came.
Rob and Corey and Mark, all amazing human beings.
Grateful for all of that experience. But one of the things that I have loved the very most, it just happened again last week, is I ran into somebody who, with tears running down their face, talked about how their life has changed for the better. I think that was really our primary goal. We were just trying to do the right things as it pertained to essential oils and the value that they could bring for people. But I don't know how we can have that conversation without at the same time giving thanks to everyone who's listening, and even those who aren't at this moment, for all of their efforts, because it somewhere along the line it left from being our little dream and this is what we're going to do and feeling like we could conquer the world.
It's now their dream.
And here we are.
It's our collective dream.
And there they are.
Yes.
And they're conquering the world. And all of the good that happens day in and day out as you share your own experience. And I think our greatest desire is that you be immovable.
You have a lot of love coming in as they're just sharing their gratitude to you.
Thank you.
You now have 10 million strong doing that work that you started. And they're not going to stop. We're just beginning.
Somebody asked me today at convention this year as I walked out on stage what that felt like. Same way it feels right now. Completely overwhelming and lots of gratitude. You know, I don't think we ever get this opportunity to stop.
No.
I don't think we ever get this opportunity to pretend like we don't know what we know. So I, like everyone else, am looking forward to the future and the things that we'll yet discover, the work that we have still to accomplish, which is great.
Yes, we have much work yet to do.
Emily, would you agree with me? Maybe I'm wrong, but when I think about this, and you have to agree with me even if you don't.
Okay.
But when I think about this, I think about the work that we've done. And I sometimes hear people say that, well, there's really just not much more you can do. Oh. I feel like literally we're just scratching the surface.
Barely.
There's millions and countless millions of people who still have never even heard of essential oils. But even if they had, they need to know doTERRA.
And certainly haven't experienced a pure essential oil and what it can do for them and for their family. I love as a mother that these pure essential oils have empowered me to take charge of my family's health care. That no matter what hits us, I feel prepared. And there's just such an awesome feeling that comes with that. And I love, we get to see it now passed down to our next generation with our grandchildren.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I love watching my daughter apply oils to her children. And it's an awesome feeling.
I think sometimes people believe that empowerment somehow bypassed us because we were the creators of the empowerment.
Oh no, we created doTERRA for us.
Yeah,
Yes.
We have the exact same needs. We do the exact same things in our home
very
that we
human.
talk about.
Yes.
So great love to all of you. And
Yes. Happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy holidays to all of you. We love you so very much.
we're looking forward to seeing you in the future.
Bye-bye everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Bene, se sei arrivato o arrivata fino qui, complimenti. Sono sicuro che avrai fatto il pieno di informazioni veramente molto preziose. Per eventuali domande riguardo l'incenso o per acquistarlo con il 25% risconto, ti ricordo di contattare la persona che ti ha mandato questo video oppure il tuo consulente di riferimento in doTERRA. Qualora non avessi ancora un consulente di riferimento, mi puoi scrivere su WhatsApp e ti risponderò al più presto. Trovi il mio numero qua sotto in sovrimpressione. Per il resto, per questo video è tutto. Ti ricordo di iscriverti al canale per non perdere i prossimi video e ancora una volta, se vuoi vedere contenuti simili su questo canale, fammelo sapere nei commenti di modo che posso iniziare a lavorarci. E noi ci vediamo in un prossimo video. Ciao!